right now we have 750,000 regular heroin users in the country, and that number is rising all the time. And this is a drug that's available in the suburbs, in the inner city, as you said, on campuses and schools, and it's very dangerous, and unfortunately it's out there in a big way.
And that's becoming an understatement. That, of course, former DEA Special Agent Robert Sprang, he was speaking out to RFL earlier this year for a special that we did on the heroin epidemic that is taking over our region. Now, police departments across our area say heroin busts and seeing heroin overdoses are now routine. The amount of heroin seized on Staten Island alone jumped 300% from just 2011 to last year. And just this week, police in Ellenville say the life of a man overdosing on heroin twice in the same day. They were called in to help him at 2:25 in the afternoon, and they came back out an hour later to save his life after he overdosed yet again on the drug. The problem also exists throughout our region. Take Connecticut, for example, where Tuesday at Brandeis University in Manhattan, Governor Dannel Malloy of Connecticut met with governors of the 4 other New England states that participated. The Maine governor wasn't available, all to discuss the growing epidemic within their state borders of heroin and what they could do together to try and cope with this mass rash of overdoses. Now, Malloy said, quote, that in some of our smaller towns, we are seeing 3 or 4 deaths occur in a relatively short period of time. Now, earlier, I spoke with the governor about the crisis firsthand. Is it fair to categorize the heroin crisis that we see, obviously not just in your state, but speaking of Connecticut, as an epidemic? Has it reached that proportion?
I would say it has. We have seen a 48% jump in deaths caused by prescription and opiate and heroin overdoses. That's a very dramatic amount, but quite frankly, it's playing out in every state up and down the eastern seaboard. Heroin is much cheaper than it's ever been, much purer than it's ever been. And, of course, prescription drugs are available. People are getting these drugs, becoming addicted. They then move from a prescriptive version to heroin, and, everything breaks down at that point.
You know, I know the Connecticut Department of Health put the number at between 3.5% and 4% of kids in high school that have tried heroin, and some people think that number might even be on the low side. People on the front lines tell me heroin doesn't carry the same stigma it did a generation ago when you would think only a street junkie would use it. I guess because you don't have to inject it anymore. But, I mean, put a face on this for us, Governor. It's a huge problem, even with kids.
Yeah, let's deal with that specific issue. It is so much purer that you don't inject it. The common way of consuming heroin is through your nostrils. That's the reality. So it doesn't have some of the stigma. You don't have to carry around a needle. You don't have marks on your arms or behind your legs or any other place. So does carry less stigma, and that's what makes it all the more dangerous because that stigma associated with the drug previously kept people from going down that road. The fear of injecting something into their body, particularly since the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s, acted as a restraining force with respect to heroin. What's happening, is ending people's lives. People who don't have the kind of experience that, an old-time junkie might have, who then goes to use the drug the first time or a second or third time, doesn't understand the differences in purity, doesn't understand how lethal this drug is. And so we need to combat that with educational campaigns, with mental health campaigns, with treatment campaigns. And we also need to make counteracting drugs such as Narcan more available to save more lives. That's what we're trying to do here in Connecticut, throughout New England. And I know New York is working hard on this as well.
Well, let's talk about Narcan, because I know you've worked, we've spoken to law enforcement, and it's amazing how the cops will tell you they're almost working as first responders when they come to so many of these scenes, but yet there isn't the immunity, at least in Connecticut as of yet, for law enforcement to be able to administer Narcan. Talk about what you're trying to do and why it's important that cops should be able to carry this and be able to use it across the board.
Well, we have passed a law that will hold them not responsible. As long as they're acting in good faith in administering the drugs, then there would be no responsibility for it. That's an important change. My belief is that all possible first responders, fire departments, police departments, EMTs, as well as anyone who's in a position to respond, should be able to administer and should be administering Narcan when, in fact, they come across a drug overdose. We're also making it available in Connecticut to family members. There are a lot of folks out there in Connecticut who know they have a family member who's abusing opiates. They hope, they pray, they do everything they can to try to get that person to take treatment. But they're also aware that there's an acute danger that that person may overdose at some point.
Finally, Governor, and again, you as well as other New England governors got together this week to come up with some regional approaches. But finally, for anybody sitting at home who says, heroin, that's some inner city problem or it never come to our neighborhood, you're seeing deaths being reported not just in the cities, but you're seeing them in suburban towns and rural communities. It's playing no favorites here. You're seeing it everywhere, right?
Well, I think that people who have that opinion about themselves or their community simply aren't dealing with the reality. First of all, we're a very mobile society. People move in and out from town to town, from place to place all the time, and that's what's happening. So, they may not necessarily buy heroin in your community, but there's a pretty good chance that if they tried to or wanted to, they could. And there's a very good chance that if they tried to get their hands on prescription drugs, they're going to be able to do that. Kids, we know that a lot of young people see a prescriptive drug in their parents' cabinet. Kids figure that out. They know what the symbol is. They know what the words are. And I think you're just kidding yourself if you think that your young person is not smart enough to figure that out.
And as a side, if you go to our website, you'll be able to access our entire special we did on this subject. You'll hear from all the different stakeholders, from law enforcement, from treatment facilities, from families who've lost loved ones to this drug, surviving addicts themselves. You'll even talk to a priest who's had to officiate funerals and also deal with a lot of young people in the community who are in the throes of this addiction. Again, just go to the RFL site. All right, coming up next, everyone, RFL will wrap things up, so please stay with us.